about our guest today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Today we have Eric Daugherty. He is the global leader in health and generative AI, specializing in pharmaceutical and medical device commercialization. As the president and CEO of DPE Inc., he brings extensive expertise in global health, government relations, and change management, advising organizations and serving on boards to drive impactful advancements in healthcare technology. Welcome, Eric, to the Stay on Course podcast.
Good morning, Julie, and good morning, Neil. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Let's just go right to it, Julie.
Well, we're going to get right into it, but Eric, I do ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food is coconut shrimp. My
Ooh,
kids will love that answer too.
that's interesting. Coconut shrimp. You know, my mother loves coconut shrimp. Every time we go out, she does order that coconut shrimp. It's delicious. So
It's one of those
awesome.
things. It's a staple as an adult, and it was a staple as a kid. So I just grew up with it, and just it's one of those things you can make it on a fly if you need to, or order it on a fly. So it's actually pretty awesome.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So today we're going to talk about ingredients for success in having an organization or a larger organization, right? And let's just get right into the first ingredients. What's the first ingredient, Eric?
It's honestly, it's the people. It's making sure that you've got the right people in an organization. If you're in a startup or if you're in a multi-billion-dollar organization, having the right people is an essential part of a good running organization. It's interesting today. There's news coming out over the last couple of months. There's been ups and downs on the employment swing, and obviously, there's a lot of people that are still looking for the right companies to join. And they're out there, and just really ensuring that when you are posting for a position, that you get to the process of interviewing for a position, that you're really connecting with those people who would be a good fit for the team and good fit for the organization.
Yeah. Neil, you've had some people that you've hired recently. What do you think about having the right people in the right roles?
So here's the thing that you have to look at is this is my journey that's why I'm splitting my two businesses up. And I guess I'll be making a lot of announcements in November and in the end of the year is that you have to hire the right people. And I definitely did hire the right people, but I ultimately didn't want to be operating those businesses. And there's a lot of motivated people that want to do it. So if you hire people that you know are going to be long-term with your organization and your vision changes, but they see it, they believe it, they're interested. One thing I'm really good at is when I am great at hiring people. I've done it in tutoring, hired the best tutors, I've hired the best team because I understand what people want and they're motivated. And if they seem motivated and excited to work for me, that's the best thing possible. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge for people are how am I going to motivate them to want to do the very best, even if they're not getting the most money to start and see the vision of where the company's going, what we want to do. And then they say, yes, I'm going to come on board. A lot of times we try the person selling us to come into our organization instead of us really giving our values, our system, and so that they know the straits of what we're looking to do to grow. And
Mm.
that's
Totally
why
agree.
I'm really good. That's why I'm really good at selling people on working for me, coming on my show, doing specific things because I motivate them to have that opportunity. And that's
Yeah,
the biggest problem with hiring people is we want them to sell themselves versus our organization selling ourselves.
totally agree. And I think it's really that passion behind, kind of their work ethic that kind of drives that initiative. What I have found is that, in today's world, I'm going to be more at the Z and the X generation, where a lot of them are doing the job hopping. They're finding a role, they stick with a company for maybe a year or two, and then they bounce to another company. That's kind of the sign of the times. That's not a good thing or a bad thing. I think it really depends on the individual. And if they have that passion, that drive behind them, that's a huge benefit to the organization. I think, also finding that individual who wants to draw upon their career path, that wants to take and advance their skills, wants to take and advance kind of their qualities of either leadership or teamwork, and building that up into, really a really robust employee for the organization that hopefully make them stay for the long run.
Awesome. Which leads us to our next ingredient.
Yeah, that's really the position, and finding the right person to fit the right role, to fit the right position. and really ensuring that, once they come on board and into the organization, that they are the right fit for that role. It might be one of those things where, again, they use it as a stepping stone or a learning type of role, and then move in or transition into another role within the organization. And that might be a lateral move, it might be a move up. And so depending upon the situation, just really finding that niche or fit for that employee is hugely beneficial to the employee, obviously, which is great, because obviously they're advancing their skills and advancing potentially, into different roles within the organization. But truly, it benefits the organization. It allows the organization to have more input from individuals across the board, to move into different roles and to really accelerate, hopefully, the growth of the organization.
Yep.
And
And
then that,
then,
go ahead, Julie. I was going to jump on what he said about specifically enough finding the right people with the right skill sets. But at times you have to figure out what you might hire somebody and you might find there's another position for them that's better. But
Yep.
that's the ultimate thing where you have to identify really what's their secret sauce. Why are they who they are? And it's going to take time. So you have to be able to take the time to have them stay in the organization. That's why it's so important to have your right SOPs in place, train them properly, have them understand everything, so that if you see this is not the right fit, but I love their work ethic and I love how they're coming to work each day, I'm going to fit them into another spot.
yeah.
So true, so true. And I think, where I'm finding kind of issues with, and again, with my background and kind of experience on the AI side, and more obviously the generative AI side, a lot of these large organizations that have the money to do this are putting in to their HR systems, their human resources systems, the generative AI that basically will capture the resumes or CVs of individuals and runs data through them to find out if they're a fit for the organization. Good and bad. I mean, I think there's some excellent opportunities there, because obviously it speeds up the process to potentially find the right person. But I'm sorry, a piece of paper is not I would say a notebook or a book of information about that individual. It's about, some of the roles that they've had, but not about the true person themselves. And talking about, again, passion. You can't find passion on a piece of paper. You can't find the drive and initiative on a piece of paper. You can see the roles that they were in potentially to kind of get that information, but you don't have the solid kind of throughput of information to give that background knowledge. And I think that's where a lot of these organizations are putting emphasis on that aspect of Gen AI within the HR setting. And I think that is honestly going to be driving towards failure for organizations because of that.
Yeah. And each individual sets up the team, which is our next piece of the puzzle. And it's that ability to collaborate with the team, to achieve goals together. And so let's talk a little bit about team building and teamwork, because I think that's so important that we have the synergies between the people on the teams.
Yeah, I totally agree. I started my career in healthcare. I've always been in healthcare. And within the first setting of my work, I basically had a leadership mentor, Bob Ingram, who was the CEO of Glaxo Inc., CEO of Glaxo Wellcome, did a lot of the work on the transition into the GlaxoSmithKline entity that you see today. And, his three pillars were teamwork, communication, transparency. Those three pillars, you have that in an organization, you have an organization that runs very, very well. And, early on, I found, even before Matrix became a kind of tag word within the work environment, working amongst different divisions within an organization, working amongst different business units within an organization, working amongst different companies, company to company, to cross-sell, cross-market, et cetera, was something that I learned very, very early on. And so that teamwork part of it, to where you basically encapsulate communication, making sure that everybody on one side of the business unit is well aware of what we're doing on this side of the business unit, and vice versa on the company side, where you've got obviously information that you want to make sure that if you are co-marketing or co-promoting, that organization is knowing full well what we're doing, and vice versa. And that just, I think, bodes well for having a very good teamwork oriented type of organization, but also really transitions into hopefully driving the growth of the organization. And in that case, mainly either the business unit or the different companies that you're working within, that you're allowed, and then the growth between those two organizations or business units.
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting because I've worked in big pharma for many years, and the organization gets so complicated. And as you get up higher, it's a very interesting game that you have to play.
Yeah, and you've got to make sure that, again, it's that transparency part too. You want to make sure that you're being transparent as possible. Obviously, within a corporate setting, there are things that you can be transparent about, and there's other things you can't be. But at least you let them know kind of what is going on within the business, and I think that really bodes well for, again, from an information standpoint, from a communication standpoint, for the organization to be able to let the employees know kind of the reason why we're doing things. What's the timeline? What are the outcomes going to be? And that way they can, again, be part of that team setting and be involved on kind of the next steps for the organization.
Yeah. So it's the communication and transparency, which is the next ingredient. And, the thing that I kept hearing over and over again, make sure you get alignment, make sure you get alignment. And it's always about alignment. And so it's so different on this side of the fence. I'm working for myself now where I don't have to have alignment. There's no, there's no leadership team on this end yet. But it is so, so interesting when you start to have layers and layers and layers and layers of an organization that you have to get yeses from as you make decisions.
Yeah, and that's the good and bad of a large organization. And some of them are lean and mean, and they've got basically a more of a flattened type of setting. And then obviously you have other organizations that have more of a vertical setting. And so within each, you just got to make sure that you have that communication set up, you have the meetings set up, you've got maybe the town hall meetings set up that are, giving that communication side of things. And obviously within those realms, you can push the transparency side. I think the one good and bad of that is, again, if you're in a leadership role and you're not communicating, your team doesn't know what's going on. The folks that you're working with have no idea what is happening with the business, and that unfortunately causes a lot of unrest within an organization. And I think, again, if you are a good leader, if you are somebody that it has that kind of bottom line of, hey, I've got to be a part and a resource of the group. If you have that mindset and knowledge base of what you want to do as a leader, that's going to bode well for the organization.
Awesome. It's true. Transparency, communication. Hey, I have a question. So talk about a little, what do you think is going to change because of AI in leadership and the way big organizations are running? What do you think is going to be the major big difference?
Yeah, and you're asking me what. I would actually kind of preface it by saying what is happening, not what will happen. Because it's happening today. I mentioned the HR setting and use of generative AI in that. I think where it really will help from a process standpoint, it's going to be, I think from an efficiency standpoint, really lend itself to helping a lot of the efficiencies within an organization, be it manufacturing, be it on the sales and marketing end, and obviously providing more data and more relevant real-time data. Obviously in the healthcare side, I think there's a huge, huge benefit that's already being seen on the clinical side, where the speed to market is really being put into play with generative AI by, allowing the digital twin environment when you're running clinical trials and trying to do a drug development discovery for a drug. But even in the clinical trial setting, having the ability to run generative AI and the data that's coming in off of patients in that clinical trial is going to be hugely relevant. And then I really think on the other side too, you've got the ability to transform I would say the quickness, the speed of communication. Be it writing up articles or putting into play marketing materials and putting into play any type of sales and advertising. And that's obviously back to Neil on some of the work that he's going to be doing. The aspect of, using generative AI to formulate very, very spot on programs within a business setting is going to be highly, highly relevant within the generative AI setting.
100%. And I think that ultimately the C-suite positions might be less C-suite positions because the CEO can stretch himself into another area of analyzation. A lot of people that are in those specific roles and higher level roles in the company have to really learn AI more and be able to show their value and growth and progress to the organization, or they're not going to keep their jobs, which we're already seeing at the end of this year with the loss of jobs because of AI, especially in the high level positions.
And what I'm seeing too, and again, across the board, be it in my realm of healthcare, and it's also happening in finance and manufacturing spaces as well. You're seeing a lot of these large organizations start putting into play. They've got a typical CTO, chief technology officer potentially, but now they're actually adding chief AI officers, artificial intelligence officers. Mayo, as an example, has just done that. So on the healthcare side. And a lot of the focus is obviously on looking at those applications to improve workflows, improve patient outcomes, improve financial status within the organization. I mean, there's so many different tags within a kind of a healthcare setting or within a corporate setting that really allows generative AI to put things in a really good place. Again, the key though is just making sure that the data going into the system is good data, and making sure that the bad data is basically eliminated before it goes into a AI setting from analysis standpoint.
Amazing. Eric, tell us what you're working on now and where our audience can find out more about you.
Yeah, so I've got an international consulting firm basically working in multiple industries from, again, healthcare, so pharmaceutical, medical device, digital health, and also looking at a number of international businesses. They can find me on LinkedIn. You guys will have that LinkedIn tag. Definitely reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Would love to have conversations with you all. And again, really appreciate the time, Julie and Neil. This has been pretty fascinating. And again, I think the aspect of leadership, as we all know, is key to running a business and key to making sure a business runs efficiently and also drives revenues for the organization.
All right. That was